So, I'm Ed O'Brien. Thank you for hanging in there. I'm glad jackhammer isn't going any longer.
Yeah.
I'm also glad I wasn't holding a jackhammer for 4 hours. In any event, so I want to talk to you today a little bit about Endorphins. Endorphins is an iOS mobile application. It takes sort of the best that's out there in terms of wearable devices, wearable fitness apps, and aggregates those. So a quick snapshot of the market. There are really three sort of category leaders in the device market. With Fitbit being the category leader, they actually announced or rolled out a new offering with Tory Burch, so you can now place orders for that. Nike's interesting too to keep an eye on because they laid off all their hardware people in April, and they just swiped a couple of engineers that moved over to Apple. I read about that this week. So the business at the end of 2014 is going to be about $5.2 billion. They're projecting, and by 2018 it's projected to explode to about $30 billion. So you can see why people are really excited about this category. So this slide is a commingle of survey research data that I acquired in talking to people. A survey that I kicked out. I had about 30-some people that responded to it, in addition to some research. And it shows that many people who get these devices actually fall out of the market pretty quickly. My research revealed about a third, but I read as much as a half, so it's pretty big. 1 in 10 Americans have actually used the device. So a couple of things really popped to the surface when I talked to people that just became immediate. You'll see I tried to thread this through the whole experience. One is the data wasn't necessarily actionable, which is to say I don't know how I'm doing fitness-wise. I know I've got this many calories, I've done this number of steps, but am I closer to being ready for a marathon? And my cholesterol went down. Is it because I'm eating better? Is it because I'm exercising more, sleeping, etc.? So those are the two things that came out of my research. So then I jumped into persona development, and I did actually 4. I talked to, actually this guy, he's not Nick, but I talked to a trainer. And he's one of these guys who actually has a number of applications that he's using to measure his hydration, to measure how much weight he's lifting, his heart rate. He's actually doing endurance exercises. He's tech savvy. Margot, the mom, actually, her feedback was interesting on a number of levels, but she didn't actually like wearing the device when she was exercising or when she was out and about because it competed with jewelry. So that was some key pieces of info that I pulled from those two. Tom, the gadget guy, is sort of recovering from some issues that he's had health-wise, and so he's tracking everything. But he just finds, and he's the one who said the data isn't actionable, he finds that it's just not that useful in an aggregated sense. And then Alice is just thrilled to be as tech-savvy as she is at this age. So I looked at a number of applications that are out there, and started to toggle through a bunch of examples of the PDF version. But I looked at a lot of them, I played with them, I messed with them. There were some things I liked, there were some things I didn't like. But I found that, to the earlier sort of information that I gathered, that there wasn't a place to aggregate it all. So Endorphins does all that. It's like think of it as like a mint.com that shows your 360 view of how you're doing fitness-wise. So I got into sketching. I'll talk about sketching for just a second because it revealed a few things for me that were really interesting that, again, made their way into it. Some of you might recognize the sketch on the left. I think Michael and Christine were involved in that. That was the first iteration. I think you can see up here it actually says Android, but this was a big riff. We went 100 different directions, and Endorphins ended up being the name that I chose. And then I drilled down a little bit further on what the experience would look like, some of the categorization. I sort of took it another step further in terms of a sketch. And what was interesting for me, and I started to think about cloud scoring. For those of you who know about cloud scores, it measures social media influence across all your profiles, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And so that index is measured against your peer group or your colleagues. And I thought, well, what if you could do something like that in this experience? So my endorphin score is sort of a cloud score. Another sketch where I drilled down a little bit further in my endorphin score, and I said to myself, well, how do I give people an incentive to come back? And I did some reading in one of the pieces, 100 things that every designer ought to know, and they had this thing called the gold rating effect, which basically says if I gave you a coupon book or I gave you a frequent flyer card and it was for 12, and you punched, and I had punched out 2 and I gave it to you, and I gave somebody else 10, you're more likely to get through all 10 more quickly than this person would. So I wanted to incorporate that into my experience as well, and you'll see how that plays out. So then I got into wireframes, and that was a sketch that I did to get myself started. But this is really the heart of the experience. So you get yourself, you have your choice early on, a decision to make whether you're a returning user or you're somebody new, and I capture some profile management here, or you just log in. This is app authentication, so I've got a polar loop on my wrist right now. So I choose that among the bevy of choices, and that goes on and on and on, and then I authenticate using my credentials from Polar. I'm already a Polar user. This is the dashboard, so this is really kind of the heart of the experience. If I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily want to authenticate, I can manually put in this data, but it doesn't capture it beyond a day. So I can look at my endorphin score, which actually is all the way to the right here, and see how my progress is doing. And my intention is for the progress to be illustrated on a daily, weekly, monthly, maybe even yearly basis. And then that little keypad there allows you to input that data. So some challenges that I didn't necessarily solve for that I'm still thinking about. One is certainly, the ease of presenting the data. There was some feedback that I'd like to be able to communicate with others in my universe around how the progress is doing, not necessarily stitching it across Facebook, but maybe there's 3 or 4 people that I work out with, or I run with somewhat religiously, and I'd love to have some weekly banter and discussion around how our endorphin score is looking. The technology piece, certainly peering with all these from an API standpoint, is an outstanding item that I need to solve for. A satisfactory experience in that regard. And then, of course, the business side of it is how does it compare to sort of the other alternatives, including the ad hoc spreadsheets that are out there. So then I started messing around with the logo, and I'm open to questions. I'm sorry, the what?
Wearables. Is that, yeah, the market's going to really boom. Are you talking about wearables that are oriented towards sports, or is that just general?
Yeah, so wearables is a really broad category.
Yeah.
And so, you can think of things like eyewear, you can think of things like World Cup players put, devices in their shoes to measure the number of miles they were running during an event. So it's a really huge category, so that $30 billion sort of captures all of that. My experience was primarily devices, but it's also mobile experiences where you might be capturing any sort of data.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have a general comment, because I saw your wireframes before, and these wireframes are way more user-friendly. Like, you really got some good patterns, because I think the last one you had like a scroll bar, and then all that stuff, so from that iteration, we've come a long way.
I think it's great, and I think the dashboard, you figured out a way to include people that didn't necessarily aggregate everything, or didn't have something and you can get it tasted inputting manuals. I think that was a great problem that we solved. That was my big thing the whole time. I was like, well, what if I would use this? I thought the research summary slide was really fun and clear and effective. And things like, the Wild West of fitness apps just got me excited about it. I'm like, oh shit, well, should I go out to Wild West and make a fitness app too? So I also thought it was a really good explanation of, endorphins is like the clout score of fitness. Really help bring the model down. So there's a lot of good repetition in making sure that people understood exactly what it was, and then set you up, and then it set up the deliverables, which worked really well. I also thought the challenges to be solved, in true agile form, just let the stage open and said, this isn't done, this is work, this is continuing. It's not the end. Here are the things that I want to continue working on. So thank you for putting that. Minor thing about the button style in your wire, you have the login and the sign up on the left, and then you have, back up, go here. So you have this button style in your wire, and then you have these button styles. So this is like more of a web button style.
Oh, yeah.
They took me out of it, and you're still doing these little hands from the web world.
Yeah.
This is tappable. If you want to show that you've tapped on this, you can just use a big circle on this.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This kind of takes you out. But so make these the same, or make them at least the same size, or flat, just to keep the style consistent. And I think that'll help tighten up your deliverable. Otherwise, I'm excited to see it.
Endorphins.